rejection and a no, people are so afraid of that. That's your freedom. That rejection, that no, that's your freedom. Like, that's when this thing really opens up, when you embrace that. That no is like telling you, like, I know what I'm not. Then the more you know what you are, the more you're gonna get those signals. But people will take those signals and they'll be like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. It's like, no, you're doing something right.
Welcome to the Callum Johnson Show. On today's episode, we have the one, the only, Nait Jones. Nate, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Good, man. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I've been wanting to make this happen for a long time. And the reason I came across you, the first episode we ever released for the podcast was with Ruben Harris.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he mentioned your name on the pod. And then after that, I looked deeper into it and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, he's from London. Been a partner at Andreessen Horowitz. I was following what you were doing at Royal. Yeah. Obviously, you're chief executive of Oyi Labs now.
Yeah.
So you've been working on a ton of interesting shit. So I was like, when he's next in New York, we're making this happen. I was checking the Instagram. I was like, okay, he's here. Let's do it.
Yeah, you did that. That was great.
Okay, cool. You know what? So I want to, you share a lot of wisdom on your Twitter. So I want to take one of your tweets and I want you to elaborate. I want you to elaborate on it. I have a lot to choose from.
This could go a lot of directions. Let's see where it goes.
Okay, so here we go. This episode is brought to you by Free Agency. If you want to take your career to the next level, Free Agency is a company that you should check out. They manage and represent talent in the tech industry, and they provide you with a dedicated talent agent to help you find, engage, and win top of market roles that will maximize your earning potential. No more leaving money on the table. Stop job searching alone and start building your dream career today with Free Agency. Anyway, back to the show. So men derive satisfaction from solving problems. Mm-hmm. Up until about 150 years ago, and through human history, we had to solve problems daily that directly impacted our survival. Many men are depressed because they can't fulfill this feeling. Okay, so here's where I want to start. I had a friend actually, he told me a couple of weeks ago, he said, we're in graduation season right now. Mm-hmm. People are graduating college, they're graduating high school, they're going out into the world, they're kind of forging their path. This is the beginning. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw your tweet, I was like, it's interesting, right? Because I think there's a lot of people, and I've felt it at certain points, they're lacking like purpose and that direction. Mm-hmm. So first of all, let's start. Like, I want you to elaborate on the tweet, and then also how did you start to figure out the problems that you were uniquely placed to solve?
All right, there's a lot there. You chose one of my spicier tweets.
We get straight into it here.
You really dug for that.
We go straight into it.
You really dug for that. You're like, what's the internet gonna love most? Yes, let's get right into the gender stuff. Yeah, so look, I spend a lot of time around young men, mentoring them, and helping them think through like what it is to be in this modern environment that's somewhat different, actually remarkably different than the environment I grew up in when I was younger, culturally. And the world has shifted and changed. With every advancement, there's also a trade-off, obviously. And I'm neutral on that. Like, I don't necessarily think like this shouldn't have happened or that shouldn't have happened. I think the world's going to change. There's going to be natural progress, and there's going to be shifts that affect people in different ways. Ultimately, there's going to be benefits that we gain from some of those shifts. And I think the things that have kind of moved in a way that has caused us to think more about how are young men deriving satisfaction and meaning from their lives. These are really difficult questions that I don't think there's a lot of seriousness around answering. I see a lot of internet personalities that are good at drumming up audience and getting people provoked, but I don't see a seriousness around this conversation yet, which is we're incredibly isolated. We have less friends than we have ever had before. We're less connected to meaningful work, and we're less challenged in certain ways than we ever were before to do different tasks that bring a sense of like, and it's hard to really like articulate this right now, especially after the night I just had last night. But I'm gonna go try and go here. I had a really fun night last night. I really love New York City, and I just see that. I just see this kind of inertia and malaise and like depression and anxiety and detachment and resentment, and you feel it. It's like a low hum, and I've observed that actually in myself, actually over the last few years. Not that feel like I don't have that feeling. I've just observed myself and thought back to like when I was in my 20s and like how did I feel and where did I go to derive satisfaction from? And more the answers are very antisocial. They can degenerate socially because people are being pushed into areas that are ultimately unfulfilling. Like we have all of these things that are at our fingertips now. All this access to all of these things that we didn't have access to before on demand. We have access to communities, but somehow we're less connected than we've ever been before. There's no sense of community. Like men somehow don't know how to form bonds with other men in a healthy way, like my dad's generation did. Like, and I observed that generation. Like every Saturday, his friends would come over. They would play cards. They would listen to music. They would do these things, and they would encourage each other professionally. And this, my dad was a military man, so there were other military men, and maybe it's a factor of the military itself and that culture. But I did notice something very unique that was both military culture and also Black culture, which was very communal and friendship for the sake of just being friends versus I need something from you. And so I observed that. And it was like my dad's friends were like my uncles. Those were my friends too, right? Those were they were family as well. And it was a really tight-knit community. And it takes a lot of intentionality and work to build something like that now, whereas I feel like in generations past, that just naturally is a way people just assumed they organized with each other. I wasn't going to like text you and then like plan to cancel 5 minutes before and know that I was going to do that when I accepted the plans with you. Like those are the things that we do now. It's like making fake plans and flaking and all these other things. And like, again, it's a factor of we have so many things to do. We have so many things at our fingertips that we have really nothing. Like we have so much abundance, we have so much freedom that we're really trapped. It's like the paradox of choice, and I'm all over the place here. Obviously, like there's a lot of different threads we can pull on here that would probably be entire podcast episodes. But I think about that. I have intentionally built different communities of people, really modeled off of what I saw as a kid, listening to music together and like hanging out and just talking about life. And maybe there's a really, really nice high-end bottle of some really nice alcohol involved, you know what I'm saying? And maybe there's not. Like I've been toning down on alcohol lately because of just health reasons and getting older. But these are some of the things that I thought about and kind of modeled after what I saw as a kid, because I thought that was the best part of my childhood, was those Saturdays when everybody would come over and the food was on the grill and the music was playing and it just went into the early hours of the morning. Like I always wanted to replicate that. And there's something that can come out of bonds like that. And I think people are really missing a lot of that now, and so it's really a shame. People are really alone. And then meaningful work. The idea that you work on something that brings you fulfillment just in the act of doing it is kind of a lost mindset. We've got to be climbing a ladder now. Everything I do has to lead to the next thing that gives me more clout, more social status, promotions, and ultimately wealth. And it's a game that we're kind of playing. And I don't get a real sense that people, by and large, are happy with what they're doing, how they're spending their time. It's probably my biggest regret. If someone asked me about like, what is your biggest regret from your 20s and 30s? I always think back to like how I spent my time, who I spent my time with. And ultimately, some of that stuff is my biggest regrets are there. Like that I wasn't more intentional about it.
Mm.
How I used my time, where I worked at, how long I worked there, who I was friends with. When did I end the friendship? Should I have ended it sooner? Should I still be friends with that person? Why did it break down? So you just start to think about your life differently, and you start to kind of understand things differently. And I think that's where my view comes from on a lot of this stuff.
Mm. I'm curious, what makes you said that's probably your biggest regret, just where you spend your time, especially in your 20s and 30s. I'm curious what makes it a regret, because even for me, when I reflect, there's kind of like a journey, there's like an arc to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even things that didn't go your way, the way I see it, it's like setting the scene for the things that do go your way, because there's a learning, there's a journey to it. But when you say regret, it almost feels like lost time. It feels like it was unnecessary. So I'm just curious for you to reflect on that. Like, what makes it a regret versus just a learning?
It feels like these are two conflicting ideas when they're actually not. And so what I love about the truth is always found at the intersection of two ideas that seem like they conflict and they really don't. That's one thing that I've observed in my life, which is like, yes, it's all played a role in my development and where I'm at and the lessons that I've learned. But one of those lessons is that time is your biggest investment, and not all of your investments were good ones, you know. And part of those learnings are that, and then getting better at it going forward. Like, and when we talk about it, like relationships, I think is kind of how this conversation started. There's just some critical components to building the proper relationships that support your goals and your visions. Like, so many relationships are kind of built on vibes, and there's no real discussion of shared mission. And so the only time you really find out whether you really share the same mission is when some kind of tension emerges in the relationship that forces you to define the relationship again. Because every relationship goes through a redefinition period, like redefining it. And so tension brings that about. And so today, like, we avoid conflict. And so relationships that could get stronger typically don't, because we don't know how to engage that tension in a healthy way. We avoid it. We run away from it. So ultimately, like, we are essentially investing in relationships without any diagnostic information on whether we should even be in that relationship or not, or if we should extend it, or if we should end it, because we're not engaging beyond just, this is a vibe. What's our mission? What's our mission? Like, what are we doing here together? What are we trying to achieve together? Do we share the same values? Can I support your values? Can you support my values? If we don't know those questions, it's hard to build something substantial together. And if you really think about building a life, you're really building a story that somebody else can tell after you're gone. Right? It's all about that. It's not about, like, no one's going to care like you did a great PowerPoint presentation. No one's going to care like I raised $1 million here, $20 million there at the end when I'm gone. No one's going to care about that. What they are going to care about is the legacy of wisdom and principles that I left behind that can be reused in future generations. The stories and the memories that set the culture in the community that I was in, right? And so when we see culture eroding, you really break it down to the micro level. You can look at individual relationships and those dynamics, the complexities of those relationships and the dynamics of them and how they're handled, and you can see why the culture is eroding. It's exactly because of that. Everything's vibes. Because we look at social media and we're like, yo, these people are having a good time. Those people I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that. But we never ask ourselves, like, when we're getting jealous of that, we never ask ourselves, like, why do you want to be a part of that? Do you share the same mission with these people? And this is why it's like, I tweeted on something about this. I said, less is more, because a few well-defined relationships with shared values and a shared mission is everything. It's all of your life. It's all the meaning of your life can be built on those foundations. You know what I mean? And like, but we spend our time trying to associate ourselves with the right people so I can be positioned just right image-wise. Like we're all politicians now.
Mm.
We're all managing the personal brand of us. And we get in this game where I need to be close to this person because it's a good look. I need to be in that group because they give me access to this, and I'm building. And I feel like people have taken such a professional, ambitious approach to building their lives versus a personal, spiritual, meaningful approach to it. And they often get disappointed because they set up these expectations that can't possibly be fulfilled. Like you can't get meaning from setting up your life that way. So, that's just kind of the way I look at it, man. It's like when I'm building relationships with people now, it's like, okay, whether it's business or it's professional, like I'm not saying that like we have to be like working on a social cause together. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that like our general ideas about what we want to leave behind, what we want to build, do we share that? Do we share that? Can I support you in that? Can you support me in that? And then building up from there. Like, to me, once you have that epiphany, everything you do becomes easier. It just becomes way easier. First of all, you lose the interdependency or the codependency on being liked, fitting in. You're just okay with like, this is who I am. And whoever's attracted to that for those reasons probably shares some of the same makeup and ideas that I have. And if that's my tribe, I feel comfortable building with those people, even if it's only one of them, even if it's only two of them, even if it's only three of them. And so that a lot of that comes from maturity, man. It's like you live life, you get to a place where you're like, man, I don't give a fuck anymore about what people think about me. And because people are, let's be honest, people are petty. They can judge over frivolous things. They change their minds. They're flighty. They're wishy-washy. They'll say one thing today and they'll do another thing tomorrow. And so you can't base the foundation of your life about what the opinion of people is of you. You have to have a set of principles that you've settled on, and you have to build on that. You have to, and if you haven't settled on principles, you got work to do, which is inner work. It's got nothing to do with the world around you. It has everything to do with you. And we constantly outsource that part of it. Like we're like, oh, I'm not feeling comfortable with the world. I'm going to go and project that out into the world instead of saying, if I'm not comfortable with the world, it's really about me not being comfortable with me. And the world's just reflecting all that energy back to me, right? So I just got this work to do before I get to this place. But once you do get to this place where you feel fully integrated, which is where the word integrity comes from, when you're in full integrity, you're walking in your principles fully in that integrity, that attracts people of similar integrity. Then you're really building at that point in time. And so that's why, man, a no, like I tell people, like rejection and a no, people are so afraid of that. Like that's your freedom. That rejection, that no, that's your freedom. Like that's when this thing really opens up, when you embrace that. That no is like, that's the true compass. Like that's telling you like, I know what I'm not. Then the more you know what you are, the more you're going to get those signals. But people will take those signals and they'll be like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. It's like, no, you're doing something right. The more people are like, I don't like that. I don't like that. You can't. So I think about this stuff a lot. Yeah.
No, that's powerful shit. And one thing you said, which I think is, it's interesting because I remember it vividly, which is that kind of like, I don't give a fuck moment. Like and I don't actually think it's just one moment. I think it's actually a process to getting there. But I remember it vividly in my life, that point where it was just like, I'm going all in on myself. Like that is it. It's almost like, for me at least, it's like a level of frustration mixed with like your ambition, mixed with inspiration, that you're like, I'm going all in on the person that I know I am. And it's powerful once you do that, because like you say, sometimes one decision can make 20 decisions. And when you make that one decision to go all in on yourself, things just get clearer. The landscape, the picture gets clearer. And I'm curious, when you reflect on your life and you think back, is there a moment which is that I don't give a fuck moment, which is I'm going all in on Nate?
Yeah, you hit on it, which is it's a series of moments for each stage you're in. Because every time you reach a new stage, you're uncomfortable because you're growing. And then as you're growing, you're kind of unsure. You're like, am I doing the right things? And then you kind of put your ideas out there because you're developing new ideas, and you put your new ideas out there, and then you experience life. You experience the shit. You know, people do stuff that it's fucked up. Like you're like, damn, why'd that happen? Damn, why'd he do me like that? You gotta, you constantly are developing that over time, because we all have soft spots. We all have weak spots. And like, that's where the universe, that's where God speaks to you and says, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to see. The whole thing is just a revealing of your character, a revealing of your spirit, a revealing of your person over life. It's just, I believe the entire journey of life is you're waking up the entire time. You're waking up. So yeah, I had some moments like that. I had some moments where I had to put up the middle finger. I'm like, I'm going to live or die on this. You know, when your back's against the wall and you could lose everything, right? You could literally lose everything. You got to make up in your mind, what's the one thing I can't lose? What's the one thing, if I could lose everything else, I can't lose this. And you decide it's like my dignity. I can't lose my dignity in this process. You found something out about yourself in the process. I went through a situation where exactly like that, professionally. You know, someone came to me and there was in a position of power, flexed on me hard in front of everybody. And it was just like, here's a moment where you define yourself. You know, Biggie said, ready to die. Mobb Deep said, survival of the fittest. What are you about? But if you stand for something, it's not ego, right? You can live. But if it's ego, the sword has to go both ways. If it cuts their head off, it has to cut your head off too. But if you're standing on something, you can survive it. So when I stepped two, I said, listen, you don't pay me enough for me to sell you my dignity. So I'm not in a position now to be successful with my coworkers because of the way you just talked to me in front of them. And so there's no way I can be successful here now. So if you wanted me to be successful here now, you just ended my career. So we might as well just pack a box and let's dip now, because I'm not selling you my dignity. And in that moment, the person looked at me and was like, I respect your principles. And I get you now. And they learned something about me because it was conflict. You see what I'm saying? That conflict is a diagnostic. So that conflict came about, that tension. They learned something about me. I learned something about me. That bred trust. The person backed up. My bad. I see what you're saying. Because it was about the business. It's like you trying to build an environment where everybody trusts each other, and then you undercut someone you're in power over in front of everybody else. Now you've told everybody in the organization that the way to succeed here is to cut each other down to show that you're the most powerful person. That's the culture. And so you're gonna insert that cultural code into the business. You're gonna ruin the business, right? So when I put it in those terms, he was like, I understand the business, and I understand you, and I understand where you're coming from. And now I respect you. And the entire thing flipped around, and me and that person were just great terms after that. But that's the point when, and look, I had everything to lose in that moment. Everything. You know, my finances at that point in time in my life were not great. I had just come back from an L. Literally had just come back from a huge L. Crazy L. I needed that job, bro. but I needed to be who I am more than I needed that job. And whatever I was going to go through if they did walk me out the door was way less than what I would have went through staying there and not stepping to. And that's conflict, tension, and being faced with your darkest fears. If you run directly into it, into the dark, screaming, go, but you back up, you're done. You can't back up. You got to run. You got to run right into it. Every time it comes. Because it's your teacher. It's not real. It's an illusion. It comes to show you something about yourself. I went down to Mexico. Me and my baby, we went down to Mexico. And I was going through a very difficult time. And she goes, I got something for you. And she had a driver. She took us into this neighborhood where I was like, man, I don't know. You know, it was touch and go. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? My heart rate, my blood pressure was elevated. I was a little on edge. The driver was a little weird. It was a lot going on. We get there, it's a big steel door. Lady opens it up. Come on. Barbed wire on top. I'm just like, babe, what is this? We go in there. There's a shaman in there. And she's like, I know what you've been going through. And I set this thing up because I think this would be really nice. I'm like, we're in the middle of where we even at. Do people even know where we at? Something happens to us. So nonetheless, I proceeded out of, this is trust for her. I trust you. Trust you. So nonetheless proceeded. And man, crazy. Took me to this thing called a Temazcal ceremony. You know what Temazcal ceremony is?
No.
They certain indigenous peoples have these practices around cleansing. And this particular shaman was from a tribe called the Nowak tribe, which he explained through an interpreter who was there, who was also a shaman, who spoke English. So it was he and a she. She explained what he was saying. And this tribe goes from central Mexico all the way down to Nicaragua. That's where they were. And these practices were passed down to him from great-great-great-great-grandfather. And so the Temazcal is this huge igloo made of ceramic. Just a little hole, like maybe that high off the ground. You got to crawl into it.
Yeah.
And and so he says, I'm bringing in the magic through the left, so you got to go to the right because it's strong magic. When you come in, you go to the right, and then you stay against the wall. And in the middle, there's a fire pit. And he says, today is a good day to die. I'm in the middle of Mexico, sitting inside of an oven with someone I do not know, who tells me today is a good day to die. Now, my anxiety level at that point in time is like through the roof. But I intuitively understood what was happening right there. Like, this is another one of those moments where you kind of face something. So they close the door, it's pitch black in there, and then they bring in the lava rocks on these deer antlers. They put them in, they scratch them off, and he's like singing these prayers. And before they started, though, he asked me, what are you afraid of? I said, I'm claustrophobic. I'm in a small, confined, dark space. I'm going to be in here. How long am I going to be in here? 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 3.5 hours. Temperatures of 140, 50 degrees because all the steam, him singing, the sound echoing all over this thing. He's like, I want you to face this. I don't want you to pretend you don't fear the dark or being enclosed in this space. I want you to observe yourself and observe your fear because it's your teacher. So today we turn your fear into your friend. And that language, when he said that, I intuitively understood that because I've broken through barriers before, so I knew what that was. And they used that to break through. And so that's the first hour of the ceremony is facing that part of the fear, which is the base level fear, like, where am I? What's going on? Then it becomes very psychedelic because you're like, everything feels like it's closing in on you. And what if we don't get out of here? What if that door is locked? It's pitch black in here. I'm sweating. I can't see anything. And then he asks you, what do you need to cleanse in your life? Mm-hmm. Once you have the sweat pouring off of you and the tears coming down and you're releasing, now say out loud, say it out loud, intentionally say out loud, what is the thing? What's the real thing? And I said it. I said, this is what's happening in my life. And it was just like, all that came up, all of it. It all came out. And we came out 3 hours later. We showered. We ate dinner with them. They cooked us a nice dinner in their home. We ate dinner with them. And it was just, it was an amazing experience. And it was kind of an abbreviation of life, of how it works in life, which is the darkest days that come into your life are your teachers, but you can't back up. You have to run at them. Mm-hmm. You can't run away, because they're like, you could give us a safe word and say you want to leave this experience at any time and we'll open the door. But I couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't do it. I knew there was something on the other side of that shroud, which is exactly how life is. Like, no matter what you're going through, it can get darker and worse. And it can feel like you're so constricted and everything is so against you and everything is so backwards. There's no way out. You can just freeze. And then that's when you begin shutting down. You begin to lose yourself. But in that moment is when you've got to look at that fear and you got to face it completely. And that's the only way to actually win, is to go right through it. Everything that you're scared of about yourself, all the childhood stuff that you dragged into adulthood, all of those things that make you feel less than what you are, what you want to be, you have to call those things out and you have to go right at them. Mm. Everything you think people are saying about you behind your back, all the things that are affecting you professionally or personally, all of the things that second voice in your mind that beats you down and talks down to you when you wake up in the morning. You're not going to be able to do this. You'll never be smart enough. All of those things, you have to look at them. You have to face them down. You have to go right at them. Mm. And you have to continually go at them. It's not like you go at them one time and that's it. You got to rage against the machine. Mm.
Mm. You know what's I have this phrase that I always say to myself, which is, the only way is through. And you know what, when you actually think about it, life is, it's funny. Like, it's actually, sometimes I don't even want to take it too seriously, because it's funny how life goes. And what I mean is, because I've just observed this happen so many times in my own life and in other people's lives, where typically the thing that you fear the most is what you avoid. And within the journey of life, you're avoiding it, but it's almost as if you're playing a video game and you have to beat the last boss in order to complete the game. And it's like, you cannot progress until you face it. And it will just keep coming back to you in different forms and different formats until it's overcome. And it's exactly what you say, which is like, you just have to go through it. And maybe we can end it here, actually, because I think you made a great point, which is, and this is even how I was thinking about it as you said it. We are the most connected that we've ever been in human history. Simultaneously, we're also the most disconnected that we've ever been in human history. We're most connected in the sense that I can contact someone who's on the other side of the world right now on my laptop, and it's with them in seconds. But in terms of face-to-face, looking at someone in the eye, and I would almost call it like bonding, like you're really there with them. There's like a presence. We're incredibly disconnected. And so if we have that as the backdrop, and if we have that as the context, I always think, what's that phrase? It's Rome wasn't built in a day. And sometimes the reason why things feel insurmountable is because we want to do it in one step. We want to do it in one jump. But really, the only thing that matters today is the first step. It's the process of improvement, the process of getting better.
You gotta fall in love with the process, man. People say that, but they don't mean it. Like, the saddest thing is the saddest day should be when you complete your goal. That should be the saddest day. If you love it. What it's doing to you, what it's doing for you, it should make you emotional, because once you've been through a few processes, you miss it. You miss what was happening in those hard days. Even though they were hard, that was life. I was living, I was alive, I was here. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, everybody feels that calling to feel like, is there anybody gonna know I was here, that I lived, that I did something, that I mattered, right? My work, my life, my family, my ideas, my hopes, my dreams, did I matter? This is what goes on in people's minds when they're living their life. Sometimes people, they determine in their mind, maybe I don't matter. I'm just gonna live it out. I'm just gonna drag it out, which is the ultimate shame, because you've already died at that moment, right? And you're living a zombie life. But I will say this too. I'm very, very glad that we didn't talk about term sheets and writing code and AI and blockchain and venture capital and music and culture and all those things. We always talk about those things. This was really like real life shit. The shit that drives the shit. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, you're alone in this world, and that's not a sad thing. It's great. This experience is a solitary experience. It's built and designed specifically for you. And that's the most hopeful thing ever. It's not a sad thing. People are going to come in your life. They're going to come out of your life. And like, you're going to go places. You're going to experience things. You're going to learn things. You're going to experience pain, joy, laughter, fear, sadness, all these other things, right? You lived. You experienced it. You did it. This is not a failure. It's not a loss. Be there. Be there in that moment. Live in that moment. Like, everywhere I'm at with whatever I'm doing, like even here on this podcast, like, I'm nowhere else. I'm here. And it took a while to get to that place in my life where it's like, are you living your life according to what's going to happen next? Like, let me look at my calendar. What's my schedule? What am I doing next? No, I got to be right here at this moment with Callum, like talking about what we're talking about. Like, this is real shit. Like, this will never happen again. This conversation is a one of one. This will never be repeated. This is my first conversation with Callum. There'll never be a first conversation with you. So I'm here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That all bleeds into the process too. Waking up every day. I tell God every day, I'm like, God, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I'm giving you today. And we'll worry about tomorrow when it gets here. I'm giving you today. And just that is like a powerful way for me to like frame my life. I can't control what's happening tomorrow, but I got today. I got this. And since I got this, I'm trusting you, God. What we doing today? What's going on? Tomorrow is going to be tomorrow. It is what it is. We're going to work on this. And that's literally is the process. You know what I mean? Someone actually replied one of my tweets, said, I think it's I don't know if it's a Confucius quote or not, but like, the man who moves a mountain removes one pebble at a time. That's it. That's the process. So I hope if any of the listeners that hear this podcast, I hope that's what they take away from this, that like, this is the process.
It's been a powerful episode, man. I can't think of a more powerful 40 minutes than this. This is something, man. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, man.
It's been a pleasure. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel. We're having fire conversations every week on the podcast. Before we end the episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Free Agency. What if I told you there is a good chance you're leaving money on the table in your career? It would kind of annoy you a bit, right? Well, Free Agency aims to stop that. They represent and manage talent in the tech industry. Here's how they do it. First, they provide you with a dedicated talent agent. Think about this as your career quarterback. They understand you and your career goals. Based on that understanding, they bring you suitable interviews at top firms. You focus on smashing the interview, and together with their network, research, negotiation expertise, they will make sure you get a top of market salary. Stop job searching alone and start building your dream career today with Free Agency.